The massive crystal halls of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversations as thousands of alien species conducted their daily business. Ambassador Veltar adjusted his ceremonial robes and walked toward his observation station, his four purple eyes scanning the morning reports with practiced boredom. "Another primitive signal, sir," his assistant Crix announced, sliding a data pad across the polished stone desk. "From the Outer Rim territories." Veltar barely glanced at the information. In his 300 years of service to the Galactic Council, he had processed hundreds of these reports. Young civilizations discovering radio waves, sending their first clumsy messages into space, hoping someone would notice them among the countless stars. "Origin?" he asked, more from habit than genuine interest. "Third planet in a yellow star system. The locals call it Earth." Crix pulled up a holographic display showing a small blue and green world spinning slowly in the projection field. Unremarkable. Standard oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, single moon, mostly water. The transmission played automatically, simple mathematical. Sequences flickered across the display, prime numbers, basic constants, the kind of elementary concepts that every species discovered when they first learned to count. Veltar had seen identical patterns from dozens of worlds. "Technology assessment?" he asked, while reviewing other reports. "Extremely primitive," Crix replied with obvious distaste. "Chemical rockets that barely escape their gravity well. Basic nuclear fission. Their most advanced computers are slower than a child's learning tablet. No energy shields. No plasma manipulation, no understanding of dimensional physics." Veltar nodded absently. Another backward world stumbling toward the stars with crude tools and simple minds. The galaxy was full of them. Around the council chambers, representatives from hundreds of advanced civilizations went about their business. The tall, graceful Zephyrians clicked their razor-sharp mandibles while discussing trade routes. The crystalline Nexari hummed in perfect harmony as they debated scientific discoveries. The warrior caste of the hegemony planned patrol routes through peaceful sectors. All of them had evolved on garden worlds, planets where gentle rains fell predictably, where seasons changed slowly, where the greatest natural disaster might be a mild earthquake or a small storm. Their ancestors had developed technology and safety, surrounded by abundant resources and stable climates. "Survival rating?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer. "Poor to moderate," Crix confirmed. "No experience with serious environmental challenges. Their world appears stable. No major predators, limited geological activity. Mild weather patterns. Typical garden world development." This was always the way with primitive species. They lived on easy planets where survival required little effort. So they never developed the toughness needed for galactic civilization. Most of them failed the standard assessment tests within the first few challenges. Population status. Approximately 8 billion individuals. They appear to have mastered basic agriculture and medicine. No major conflicts currently active, though their history shows some minor territorial disputes. Veltar almost laughed. Minor territorial disputes. These simple creatures had no idea what real conflict meant. The galaxy contained species that had fought wars across entire star systems, battles that lasted for centuries and reshaped the fundamental laws of physics. A notification chimed on his desk. The morning council session was beginning. Veltar gathered his materials and prepared to present the day's new contact reports to the assembled delegates. The main chamber held representatives from over 2,000 different worlds. Each species had earned their place through strength, intelligence, and most importantly, the ability to survive the harsh realities of galactic civilization. The entrance requirements alone eliminated 90% of potential candidates. "New contacts," Veltar announced when his turn arrived. 12 worlds have achieved basic space communications capability. Standard evaluation procedures are recommended for all candidates. The presentation moved quickly through each world. advanced mathematical species from high-gravity planets, hive-mind civilizations that had overcome their stars' radiation storms, warrior cultures that had survived the extinction of their original homeworld, and finally, Veltar concluded, the world called Earth, standard garden world development, primitive technology, peaceful society, limited survival experience. Murmurs of polite disinterest rippled through the chamber. Garden world species were common and rarely interesting. They usually joined the galactic community as protected junior members, contributing little beyond basic resources and simple labor. Assessment recommendation, asked Counselor Wrath from the central podium. Standard protocols, Veltar replied. Though given their limited capabilities, survival probability is approximately 15%. This was generous. Most garden world species achieved less than 10% survival rates in the galactic assessment trials. The tests were designed to evaluate a species' ability to handle the dangers of space travel, hostile environments, and unexpected crises. Comfortable planetary civilizations rarely possessed the necessary skills. Approved, Counselor Wrath announced. Send the standard contact package and assessment invitation. As the session ended, Veltar returned to his office to prepare the transmission. The package was routine, a basic introduction to galactic civilization, simple technological primers, and an invitation to attempt the citizenship trials. He almost felt sorry for the humans. They seemed like a pleasant enough species, living their quiet lives on their peaceful little world. But the galaxy was not a gentle place, and survival required more than good intentions and mathematical curiosity. The message launched toward Earth, carrying with it the standard greeting that had been sent to thousands of worlds over the millennia. Most never responded. Those that did rarely survived long enough to matter. Veltar moved on to the next report, already forgetting about the small blue world and its unremarkable inhabitants. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, crackling through Earth's deep space monitoring stations with the power of technologies humanity could barely imagine. Dr. Kim Mina stared at her computer screen in the Seoul Communications Center, watching symbols and patterns that clearly came from somewhere far beyond their solar system. This is real, she whispered to her assistant. This is actually happening. Within hours, every major government on Earth knew about the transmission. The message was complex, but surprisingly easy to translate once the basic mathematical framework became clear. It was an invitation, formal and polite, from something called the Galactic Council. Captain Lee Hyun received the call while training at the International Space Center. He had spent 15 years as a Special Forces operative before joining the space program, and his calm demeanor made him the obvious choice to lead humanity's response team. They want to meet us, President Park Jin-woo explained during the emergency session in Geneva. But first, we have to pass some kind of test. The translated document spread across the conference table told a disturbing story. The Galactic Council required all new species to complete what they called the Standard Survival Assessment. 3 phases of testing designed to prove that a species could survive in the dangerous environment of galactic civilization. What kind of survival rates are we looking at? Asked General Choi Sun-ho, his military experience focused on practical concerns. Dr. Kim Mina consulted her notes. According to their data, about 40% of species pass all 3 phases. The rest either fail or... She paused uncomfortably. Don't survive the testing process. The room fell silent. Earth's first contact with alien civilization came with a potentially deadly entrance exam. What exactly do these tests involve? Lee Hyun asked. The first phase tests environmental tolerance, Kim Mina explained. Participants must survive for 48 hours in atmospheric conditions hostile to their biology. Most species use protective equipment, but the test measures natural adaptation ability. Second phase, navigation and crisis management. participants must guide a vessel through a dangerous obstacle course while under simulated attack. It tests spatial reasoning and decision-making under extreme stress. And the final phase. Kim Mina's expression grew troubled. Extended survival scenario. 96 hours. In a hostile environment, with equipment failures, dangerous creatures, and multiple environmental hazards. This is where most species fail. The assembled leaders exchanged worried glances. These challenges sounded far beyond anything humanity had ever faced as a species. "We need volunteers," President Park finally announced. "People who can represent our best survival capabilities." The selection process took only days. Lee Hyun would lead the team with his combat and leadership experience. Dr. Kim Mina would handle communication and analysis. Master Sergeant Yang Daeho brought survival expertise from every hostile environment on Earth. Arctic ice, desert heat, jungle humidity, and mountain altitude. Engineer Han Sora had kept space stations operational when everything went wrong, improvising solutions from whatever materials were available. "Are you sure about this?" Lee Haeon asked his team during their final briefing. "The aliens made it clear that species have died attempting these tests." Yang Daeho grinned. "Sir, I've survived winter training in Siberia, desert operations in the Sahara, and jungle warfare in the Amazon. How much worse can their test be?" Han Sora nodded agreement. "I once kept a space station running for 3 weeks with nothing but spare parts and determination. We can handle whatever they throw at us." Dr. Kim Mina was more cautious. "We don't know what these aliens consider dangerous. Their idea of a survival challenge might be completely different from ours." The journey to the Galactic Station took 2 months in Earth's most advanced spacecraft. As they approached the massive structure called Nexus Prime, the human crew stared in amazement at technology that dwarfed anything their species had ever built. "Look at the size of that thing," Han Sora breathed. The station stretched for hundreds of kilometers, its surface covered with docking bays, communication arrays, and structures whose purpose they could only guess. "And this is just one station," Kim Mina observed. "According to the data they sent, there are thousands of these throughout the galaxy." Their ship was guided to a small docking bay, obviously designed for primitive vessels. As they disembarked, they found themselves surrounded by aliens of every description: tall, crystalline beings, insect-like creatures with multiple arms, floating energy forms that communicated through light patterns. Most of the aliens barely glanced at the humans. A few made sounds that the translation devices interpreted as dismissive comments about another garden world species and poor survival prospects. "Welcome," announced their guide, "a being whose species the humans never learned. You are here to attempt the standard survival assessment. We should inform you that your species profile suggests a low probability of success." "What makes you think that?" Lee Hyan asked politely. "Your world appears stable and peaceful. You have no experience with serious environmental challenges. Most garden world species lack the adaptation skills necessary for galactic civilization." The guide led them through corridors filled with aliens who had obviously mastered technologies beyond human understanding. Energy weapons, personal force fields, gravity manipulation devices, and tools whose functions were completely mysterious. "Your assessment begins in 1 hour," the guide announced as they reached the testing facility. "Standard protocols apply. Emergency medical support will be available if needed." As the guide departed, the 4 humans looked at each other with growing determination. "They think we're weak," Yang Daeho observed. "Let's show them what Earth teaches its children about survival," Lee Hyun replied. The testing chamber stretched out like a metal cavern beneath the Galactic Station. Hundreds of alien observers filled the viewing galleries above, their conversations creating a buzz of different languages and sounds. Most were not paying close attention to the new species about to be tested. "Another primitive group," one observer noted casually. "Garden world development. They'll probably need medical extraction within the first few hours. Ambassador Veltar settled into his observation seat with mild curiosity. He had watched these assessments many times before. The pattern was always the same. Initial confidence followed by growing panic as the realities of galactic survival became clear. Below, in the testing chamber, the 4 humans checked their basic equipment one final time. They had been given standard emergency supplies, water containers, basic food rations, simple tools, and communication devices. Nothing advanced, nothing that would give them an unfair advantage. Environmental tolerance phase beginning, announced. The automated testing system, in mechanical standard galactic atmospheric composition, shifting to hostile parameters. Participants have 48 hours to demonstrate survival capability. The chamber's air recycling systems hummed to life. Within minutes, the atmosphere changed to a corrosive mixture that would burn the lungs of most galactic species within seconds. Emergency environmental suits hung on the walls. Standard equipment that civilized beings would immediately require. The human team completely ignored the suits. Air's thin, but manageable, Yang Deho said calmly, testing the atmosphere with a few careful breaths. Reminds me of high-altitude desert training. Burns a little, but nothing we can't handle. Up in the observation gallery, conversations stopped. Several aliens leaned forward in their seats, checking their instruments to make sure the atmospheric readings were correct. Impossible, whispered Observer Nexhai. The corrosive levels should require full environmental protection. Dr. Kim Mina began tearing strips from her clothing, creating makeshift filters. The burning sensation is only in the upper respiratory tract, she explained to her team. If we control our breathing and filter the worst particles, our bodies can adapt. Han Sora moved to the environmental control panel, studying its design. Within minutes, she had figured out how to create small pockets of higher oxygen concentration using the chamber's own ventilation system. Engineering is engineering, she said with satisfaction. Doesn't matter if it's human or alien technology. Li Hyun organized patrol schedules to monitor everyone's condition. Deho, you take first watch. Mina, work on improving those air filters. Sora, see if you can optimize the air pockets further. We treat this like any other survival exercise. The observers watched in growing amazement as the humans not only survived, but appeared completely comfortable. They moved with practiced efficiency, their bodies adapting to conditions that should have been lethal. They're not even using the emergency equipment, Observer Keljan noted with alarm. How are they breathing that atmosphere without protection? 24 hours passed. The humans had established a routine, created better air filtration systems, and even improved on the chamber's environmental controls. They looked like they were conducting a training exercise rather than fighting for survival. Phase 1 complete, the testing system announced. Beginning Phase 2, navigation and crisis management assessment. The chamber transformed. Holographic debris filled the space, while simulated enemy weapons began targeting the humans from multiple directions. This was the test that broke most species, the need to make complex decisions. While under immediate physical threat, the galactic observers expected to see panic. Instead, they witnessed something they had never encountered before. Yang immediately began analyzing the debris field, identifying pieces that could be weaponized. That metal fragment there, perfect balance for throwing. Those power conduits can be rigged to overload. Han Sora calculated trajectory patterns while studying the enemy weapon positions. Their targeting systems have a predictable pattern. If we move in this sequence, we can use the debris to block their shots. Dr. Kim Mina coordinated communications while mapping safe routes through the chaos. Enemy positions marked. I've identified their blind spots and calculated optimal movement. Timing. Li Hyun processed all the information and began issuing orders with calm precision. Deho used that debris as cover and worked toward the left flank. Sora, disable their targeting systems from the right side. Mina, guide us through the safe corridors. The humans didn't just survive the crisis, they turned it into a tactical exercise. They used debris as weapons, identified enemy weaknesses, and coordinated attacks with military precision. They are not running, one observer said in disbelief. They're fighting back. They're winning, another added with growing concern. Within 6 hours, the humans had neutralized all simulated threats and established complete control over the testing environment. They had turned a survival challenge into a conquest. This cannot be correct, Ambassador Veltar stated, his 4 eyes wide with shock. Verify all systems. Check the environmental parameters. There must be some malfunction, but the instruments showed everything functioning perfectly. The humans had simply accomplished what no other species had ever managed. They had exceeded every parameter the test was designed to measure. Phase 2 complete, the system announced. Beginning final assessment, extended survival scenario. The observers fell silent. The final phase had a survival rate of less than 20% even among species that had passed the first 2 tests. It was designed to break the strongest beings in the galaxy. The humans looked at each other and smiled, ready for the real challenge. Li Yan asked his team. Bring it on, Yang Deho replied with confidence. The chamber began its final transformation, preparing to unleash 96 hours of systematic horror designed to crush the human spirit. The aliens were about to learn something new about survival. The testing chamber transformed into a nightmare that had broken countless civilizations before. Warning lights flashed as the environment shifted to its most dangerous configuration. Toxic gas began seeping through vents, while temperature controls swung between freezing cold and burning heat. The lighting system failed, plunging sections into complete darkness. Final assessment beginning, the automated system announced. 96-hour extended survival scenario. Multiple environmental hazards active. Equipment failure protocols engaged. Hostile synthetic entities released. In the observation galleries above, medical teams prepared for emergency extraction procedures. This was the phase where most species cracked under pressure, where proud civilizations begged to be removed from the testing chamber. Ambassador Veltar leaned forward in his seat, expecting to finally see these strange humans reach their breaking limit. No species had ever completed the final assessment without at least some casualties or psychological trauma. Hour 12 arrived with systematic equipment failures. Life support systems shut down one by one. Communication devices went offline. The basic survival tools provided to the humans began malfunctioning according to the test program. The observers waited to see panic and desperation. Instead, Yang Deho began sorting through the environmental debris with practiced calm. Standard equipment failure drill, he announced to his team. Sora, what can we build from these materials? Han Sora was already examining broken machinery scattered throughout the chamber. Power coupling here, processing unit there. Give me 30 minutes and I can have basic life support running again. Impressive improvisation, Dr. Kim Mina noted, while creating water collection systems from discarded metal sheets. The air scrubbing system they provided was inefficient anyway. We can do better with simple filtration. Li Hyun established watch schedules and defensive positions as if this was routine military training. Same protocols as Arctic survival. Exercises. We've done this before, just not in space. The observers exchanged worried glances. These humans were treating a lethal survival scenario like a familiar training program. Hour 24 brought the release of synthetic predators, artificial creatures designed to hunt and terrorize the test subjects. Most species spent this phase hiding and running from the mechanical beasts. The humans studied them like interesting animals. Pack behavior, Yang Deho observed, watching the creatures patrol their territory. They follow predictable hunting patterns. Look alpha. Creature leads. Others follow at specific distances. Power source appears to be here. Han Sora pointed to energy signatures visible on the creatures' bodies. Disrupt that, and they shut down. Or we could reprogram their behavior patterns. Dr. Kim Mina was taking notes on creature movements and reactions. They respond to threat displays, but ignore passive behavior. Classic predator psychology. We can use that. By hour 30, the humans had not only figured out how to avoid the synthetic predators, they had begun taming them. Impossible, Observer Nex High whispered. Those creatures are designed to be uncontrollable. But Yang Deho was using basic animal training techniques, offering food rewards and establishing dominance displays. 2 of the mechanical predators now followed him like trained dogs. Hour 36 introduced environmental hazards that should have made the chamber uninhabitable. Radiation alarms screamed warnings while toxic gas clouds rolled through the space. Temperature extremes created zones of deadly heat and freezing cold. Most species would have retreated to whatever safe areas they could find, desperately trying to survive until extraction. The humans began building permanent settlements. Underground shelter system here, Li Heian directed, pointing to natural depressions in the chamber floor. Use the temperature differentials to create air circulation. Route the toxic gases through these channels, where they'll be neutralized. Han Sora had reverse-engineered the environmental control systems, creating a sustainable power source from the chamber's own energy grid. We can regulate temperature, filter the air, and even improve lighting conditions. Dr. Kim Mina mapped radiation patterns and established safe corridors between different areas. The radiation actually follows predictable cycles. We can time our movements to avoid the worst exposure. Yang Deho organized food production using resources found within the chamber itself. Some of the synthetic creatures, it turned out, were edible once properly prepared. Hour 60 arrived, and the observers sat in stunned silence. The humans had not just survived the testing environment, they had conquered it completely. Status report, Ambassador Veltar demanded from the monitoring station. All systems functioning within normal parameters, the technician reported. Environmental hazards operating at maximum levels. Synthetic entities performing as designed. Equipment failure protocols active. Then how are they? Veltar gestured helplessly at the display screens, showing human activity. The screens showed an organized settlement. The humans had built shelters, established food and water sources, created defensive positions, and even domesticated some of the synthetic predators. They were not just surviving, they were thriving. Hour 72 brought new challenges as the testing system increased hazard levels beyond standard parameters. Seismic activity shook the chamber, while electromagnetic storms disrupted all technology. The humans adapted faster than the test could challenge them. Earthquake protocols, Li Heian announced calmly. Reinforce the underground shelters and prepare for aftershocks. EMP surge detected, Han Sora reported, while switching to backup systems she had built from scrap materials. Secondary power grid is online. By hour 84, the assessment system could no longer calculate meaningful challenges. Every parameter had been exceeded, every danger had been overcome, every obstacle had been turned into an advantage. The humans had done something no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had made the testing chamber into a home. This is impossible, Veltar stated flatly. Check everything again. There must be some error, but there was no error. Just for humans, from a small blue planet, treating the galaxy's ultimate survival challenge like another day at work. The emergency council session had been called within hours of the assessment's completion. Ambassador Veltar stood before the assembled delegates, his usual composed demeanor completely shattered. Around the great chamber, representatives from 2,000 civilizations waited in tense silence. The humans completed the assessment, Veltar announced, his voice strained. All phases, perfect scores, across every parameter. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. In galactic history, No species had ever achieved perfect scores on the standard survival assessment. Impossible, declared Counselor Reth from the central podium. The assessment system must have malfunctioned. We checked everything, Veltar replied. Multiple times. All systems functioned exactly as designed. The humans simply exceeded every limit we thought possible. The holographic display activated, showing footage from the testing chamber. The assembled delegates watched in growing amazement as the humans adapted to each challenge with calm efficiency. They ignored the environmental suits completely, Observer Nexai reported. Breathed corrosive atmosphere like it was normal air. They weaponized the debris field, added Observer Keljan, turned a survival test into a tactical victory, and, in the final phase, Veltar paused, struggling to find words. They built a civilization inside our testing chamber. In 96 hours, the chamber fell silent. Building civilizations took millennia, not days. Request immediate review of Earth's planetary data, Counselor Rath ordered. These results suggest our initial assessment was ... incomplete. The massive galactic database hummed to life, pulling together every piece of information about the small blue world in the outer spiral arm. As the data streams began flowing across the displays, a disturbing picture emerged. Atmospheric analysis, the system announced. Highly unstable weather patterns, temperature variations exceeding 100 degrees, rotating windstorms with speeds capable of destroying structures, precipitation patterns that can flood entire continents. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Most civilized worlds had mild, predictable weather. Geological survey, Counselor Rath requested. Extreme instability, the system continued. Continuous tectonic activity, volcanic eruptions, seismic events. The planet's surface undergoes constant restructuring, forcing inhabitants to adapt repeatedly. This cannot be accurate, whispered a Zephyrian delegate. No species could evolve under such conditions. Biological assessment, the system responded to the next query. Warning, extreme hazard classification, viral and bacterial pathogens with rapid mutation rates. Predatory species evolve specifically for hunting, venomous creatures, parasitic organisms, biological toxins distributed throughout the ecosystem. The delegates stared at the data in growing horror. Earth was not a garden world, it was a death world where everything actively tried to kill its inhabitants. Historical analysis shows multiple mass extinction events. The system continued relentlessly. Ice ages lasting thousands of years, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, atmospheric composition changes. Each event eliminated most life forms. How did anything survive? Asked a crystalline Nexori representative. Species that survived developed extreme adaptive capabilities, the system explained. The dominant species, humans, evolved under constant environmental pressure. Their development was shaped entirely by survival requirements. Ambassador Veltar felt his understanding of the universe shifting. Show comparative survival data. The holographic display filled with statistics that made the assembled delegates gasp in shock. Standard galactic survival scenarios have 40% success rates, the system reported. Humans consider any scenario with less than 90% survival to be catastrophically dangerous. Their military training regularly involves expected casualty rates that would be considered acts of genocide by galactic standards. The analysis continued. They voluntarily expose themselves to conditions that would kill most civilized beings. Environmental adaptation data shows humans can survive in atmospheric conditions lethal to 80% of known species. They can function in temperature ranges that exceed the tolerance of most galactic civilizations. They require minimal resources and can create tools from virtually any materials. The chamber sat in stunned silence as the full implications became clear. They were not being arrogant during the assessment. Veltar realized aloud, they were being polite. Those challenges were easier than their normal living conditions. Review Earth historical records, Counselor Wrath ordered, though his voice now carried a note of dread. Human military history shows conflicts involving entire planetary populations, the system reported. Wars lasting years with millions of casualties. Battles fought in every possible environment, underwater, underground, in extreme heat, extreme cold, toxic atmospheres. They fight wars that would destroy our civilizations, a delegate whispered, and they recover from them, another added with growing fear. Recommendation? Counselor Wrath asked, though he seemed afraid of the answer. Veltar looked around the chamber at the representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, species that had developed in safety, grown strong through cooperation, built their cultures around peaceful coexistence. Full membership, he announced, immediate citizenship, maximum privileges, and ... He paused, considering implications that terrified him. Perhaps we should ask them to review our defense protocols, our survival training, our military preparedness. The delegates nodded in reluctant agreement. They had spent thousands of years believing they were the galaxy's dominant civilizations. They had just discovered they were wrong. Outside the council chambers, Li Hyun turned to his team. Think we passed? Yang Daeho smiled. If that was their idea of difficult. I'm worried about how soft these aliens are. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous thing in the universe was not superior technology or advanced weapons. It was a species that simply refused to die.